This Day in Sports History. Hey, and welcome back to This Day in Sports History, a proud member of the Sports History Podcast Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sports. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com. It's July 6th, and on this day in 1957, Althea Gibson made history as the first black tennis player to win Wimbledon. So yesterday, I talked about Arthur Ashe becoming the first black man to win at Wimbledon in 1975. Well, 18 years before Ashe, Althea Gibson did it on the women's side. Gibson's opponent across the net on this day was also her doubles partner, Darlene Hard. It was a hot day on center court with the temperature eclipsing the 100-degree mark. One reporter wrote that the court was an ivy-covered inferno. Gibson overpowered Hard with serves that kicked high off the hardened grass surface, making it difficult for Hard to return. When Gibson came to the net, Hard's returns turned into winners for Althea. Gibson painted the lines when Hard served, and Gibson broke her again and again. It was a fairly easy straight-set win for Gibson to win her first Wimbledon title in 7 tries, doing it at the age of 30. She shook the hand of Queen Elizabeth as she received the silver winner's plate. And yet, the woman who had just shaken the hand of the Queen of England and who would receive a ticker-tape parade in New York City on the 11th still would not be allowed access to restaurants and hotels in America in the weeks and months that followed. And of course, her journey to this moment was fraught with obstacles. Just a decade before, she had not been allowed to play on the women's tour because of the color of her skin, instead being relegated to blacks-only tennis tournaments. She practiced on city courts in Wilmington, North Carolina at night after they'd already closed and with no lights because she wasn't allowed on them during the daytime. But she won the tournaments that she was allowed to play in, and it wasn't until 4-time Wimbledon winner Alice Marble called out the hypocrisy of the governing body of women's tennis that she was even allowed her chance to play at Wimbledon. Gibson was appreciative of the effort, and it finally paid off on this day in 1957. After retiring from tennis in 1958, Gibson joined the Harlem Globetrotters, and she put on exhibition matches prior to the basketball games. She also acted in John Ford's film The Horse Soldiers, refusing to do the lines in the offensive dialect they were written in, and instead speaking them in her own voice. She wrote an autobiography and, in 1964, became the first black woman to join the Women's Professional Golf Tour. Her best finish there was a tie for second in the 1970 Buick Open. On this day in 1887, Lottie Dod became the youngest women's tennis player to win at Wimbledon. Her age actually was a bit of an advantage for her. At this point, women who played at Wimbledon had to wear long ankle-length skirts because, well, they had to be discreet. But Lottie was allowed to wear shorter skirts because of her age and therefore was able to move a little easier than her older opponents. Now, we're not talking about the length they are today, but they could fall just below the knee. Dodd beat Blanche Bingley in straight sets on this day, 6-2, 6-1, to win the Wimbledon title at the age of 15 years, 285 days, and is still the youngest to ever win at the All England Lawn and Tennis Club. Dodd would repeat as champion the following year, and then grow tired of playing other women, so she started taking on men. In 1888, she challenged 3 of the top men's tennis players to singles matches. She beat the English men's champion, the Scottish men's champion, and another lad. And since she was older, she did it in the traditional ankle-length skirt. She went on to win 5 Wimbledon singles titles before giving it up due to back issues. But her back pain didn't stop her from competing in other sports, and just like Althea Gibson, she would play professional golf, and actually would later win the 1904 British Ladies Amateur Golf Championship. She also competed in curling and field hockey, and won a silver medal in archery in the 1908 Olympics. The baseball now, and on this day in 1933, it was the first Major League Baseball All-Star game. And of course, it was billed as the game of the century. This first All-Star game was played at Chicago's Comiskey Park as part of Chicago's Century of Progress exhibition. The idea for the game had actually come from a Chicago area sports writer named Arch Ward. At the time, it was the coming together of the greatest baseball talent on one field. Babe Ruth was there, of course, and he hit the All-Star game's first home run in the third inning. The Americans beat the Nationals 4-2. At that point, the Major League All-Star Game became an annual event, and on this day in 1938, in the Midsummer Classic, how about this oddity? Brooklyn's Leo Durocher laid down a sacrifice bunt in the seventh inning, but thanks to 2 throwing errors, was able to circle the bases and score in a 4-1 win for the National League. If you had to guess the record for longest golf playoff, what would you say? Well, in most tournaments now, it's sudden death. The British Open uses a 3-hole playoff format, and the U.S. Open uses an 18-hole playoff still. Well, on this day in 1931, Billy Burke outlasted George Von Elm and the intense heat to win a 72-hole playoff. Now, not all 72 were played on this day. The U.S. Open was held at Inverness Golf Club in Toledo, Ohio that year. They played round 1 on Thursday, the second round on Friday, and rounds 3 and 4 on Saturday. After Saturday's 36-hole slog, Burke and Von Elm were tied at the top of the leaderboard at 8 over. Now, at this point in history, the U.S. Open decided the winner in a playoff of 36 holes, so the golfers came back to play another 36 on Sunday. Burke led by 2 after the morning round. In the afternoon 18, with the golfers perspiring quite profusely in their wool pants and long-sleeve shirts in 100-degree heat, Von Elm birdied the final hole of the day to even things up again. And so, tied after the playoff, the only way the USGA stipulated settling a tie was with another 36-hole playoff. The golfers came back out on Monday, again with the heat escalating steadily into triple digits, and played a morning and afternoon round again. Von Elm led by 1 at the break. The lead changed hands several times in the afternoon before Burke took a 2-shot lead into the final hole of the day. His 2-shot lead afforded him a little breathing room. He made bogey, but Von Elm could only muster a par, giving Burke the U.S. Open trophy by a stroke, winning the longest playoff in professional golf history. How about another marathon golf playoff on this day in 1998, when Ri Pak beat Jenny Chuasiriporn in the Women's U.S. Open? Both were tied after Sunday's round and came back for the 18-hole playoff on Monday at Black Wolf Run in Kohler, Wisconsin. Both women shot 73 in the playoff, but thankfully by this point, a tie in a playoff could be decided by sudden death. So they went to playoff hole number 19, both made par, on to hole 20, where Pak rolled in an 18-foot putt for birdie to win the tournament and win her second major of the year. At 20 years old, Ri Pak became the youngest woman to win 2 major tournaments in the same year. And let's finish off today with a couple of long ball nuggets. On this day in 1986, Atlanta Braves third baseman Bob Horner hit 4 home runs in the same game. The Braves were playing the Montreal Expos at Fulton County Stadium. His first 2 homers were solo shots off starter Andy McGaffigan. He hit a 3-run homer in the 5th, and then another solo shot in the 9th off reliever Jeff Reardon. At that point, Horner was just the 11th major leaguer to hit 4 in a game, and he was the first to do it in a 9-inning game since Willie Mays in 1961. So, how badly did the Braves beat the Expos that day? Sadly, and I was a huge Braves fan back then and remember watching this game, Horner's record-tying home run effort came in an 11-8 loss. And 4 seems to be the magic number because on this day in 1962, Yankee teammates Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris each hit a pair of home runs in a 7-5 win over the Minnesota Twins. Mantle's pair of knocks stretched his consecutive plate appearances with a homer to 4, tying a record held by many. And time now for today's non-sports Did You Know? Hawaiian blueberries are actually red. That's all for today. I'll have more tomorrow on This Day in Sports History. This Day in Sports History is a proud member of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sports. You can learn more and find additional podcasts at sportshistorynetwork.com. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.